Welcome to the Critical Care Certification channel. I'm Christy, and today's video is the second in a series of nursing lectures on how to interpret 12-lead EKGs. Welcome back. We're on Chapter 2, and we're going to go over in this video on how to analyze a rhythm. Our learning modules consist of, we're on the second one, how to analyze a rhythm. We just finished the video on EKG basics. And notice at the bottom I have a link I added, www.themdsite.com. This lecture video is based on a book I read years ago. It's a mainstay, and in my opinion, it's the best textbook ever written on 12-lead interpretation. It's called Rapid Interpretation of EKGs by Dale Dubin. And that website has a lot of free resources that I think that you'll find useful. He has download links to a lot of the things that we'll be going over today. Okay, we're going to talk about rhythm analysis. And we're going to do this systematically. And if you follow these steps each and every time you start to analyze a rhythm, you won't go wrong. So step number one is calculate the rate. Step number two is we're going to determine the regularity of the rhythm. We're going to assess for P waves, and we're going to determine the PR interval. And we're also going to look at the duration of the QRS complex. So those are your basic 5 steps every time in that order that you use to analyze a rhythm. Okay, here's a 6-second strip, and basically a 6-second strip you're going to calculate the rate. This is option 1. And this is just simply you're going to count the number of R waves in a 6-second strip, and you're going to multiply them by 10. So that gives you 60 seconds, and that gives you the rate. So if you look at this, I'm sure you came up with 90 beats per minute. Okay, this is the way I like to calculate a rate. I just, working for years in an ICU, found it quite useful. What you do essentially is you look for an R wave that falls on a heavy black line, and then you have to learn what is called the triplets. And the triplets is these two sets of numbers: 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, and 50. And what you do is, once you find an R wave, it could be over here, it doesn't have to be at the beginning, an R wave that lands on the heavy black line, then what you do is you count off to the next R wave. So if I had my next R wave landed here, my rate would be 300. That'd be very fast. Over here, 150. And it just gives you a quick way to estimate on the fly, what your patient's doing. So let's look at this. Okay. Okay, this will demonstrate it as well. Right here, R wave lands on a heavy black line. I'm going to go to the next R wave, and it's going to fall between 100 and 75. And so I'm going to guess that's about 95. There you go. This works really well for basically rhythms that are under 50 beats per minute. If you get lower than that, you really have to use the 6-second method. Okay, our step number 2, we're going to determine regularity. And what you do is I take a piece of paper, and just a small piece of paper, and mark off the bottom edges and line them up with the points of my R wave. And then you just slide your paper across to the next set of R waves. And so as long as they're landing and are aligned with what you have on your paper, your rhythm's regular. You can have some respiratory variation with that. It won't be much, but if you find that your waves do not align, then you're not looking at a sinus rhythm because it's irregular. Okay. That's just telling you what I just said. Okay, so that's a regular rhythm. Okay, step 3, we're going to assess the P waves. And first question we're going to ask, are they there? That's important. And do they all look alike? And this is a concept that, you know, seems relatively simple, but in practice I find it's nurses have trouble applying it in actual practice. And the way I like to describe this is that whenever a wave shows up on your EKG strip, they're like fingerprints. They're unique. So if the electrical impulse is coming from the same spot or the same electrical focus in the heart each and every time, the waves will be identical. The P waves will look identical. Okay? Now you can have a P wave that was generated from the atrium, but that didn't come from the SA node per se, maybe close by it, and it would be shaped a little bit different than the other P waves. Okay, and so then we just count and do the same thing with our paper, and we want to make sure that our atrium is contracting regularly, just the same as when we were checking for the R waves in the previous slide, that our ventricles were contracting regularly. And also very important is there just one P wave before each QRS complex. Did I have any extra beats, extra contractions occur? Okay, and so none of those things did. So there's a normal P wave with one P wave for every QRS complex. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is we're going to determine the PR interval. Normal is 0.12 to 0.20 seconds, and just remember that's 3 to 5 boxes. So a normal PR interval is going to fall somewhere between 3 and 5 boxes. That is normal. Okay, now we're going to look at the duration of the QRS complex. This is your ventricular contraction, remember, representation of it. So normal is going to be 0.04 to 0.12 seconds. So that's going to come to 1 to 3 boxes. So if the duration of your QRS complex is 1 to 3 boxes, it's normal. And this is 0.08 seconds. Okay, rhythm summary. So I have a rate that falls between 90 and 95 beats per minute. It is regular. My P waves look normal. My PR interval is normal. And so is my QRS duration. So what do we have? We have normal sinus rhythm. Okay, that's enough for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.